I told the Mafia boss to go to hell for yelling at my pregnant sister. He smiled and said, "Take me there." The dinner rush hits like a tidal wave at 7:15, and I'm 3 tables deep when I hear my sister's voice crack across the dining room. Sophia's tone, that specific wobble that means she's about to cry, cuts through the clatter of silverware and the low hum of conversation. I glance up from pouring wine for table 6, and my stomach drops. A man is standing at the back booth, all 6 feet something of him unfolding from the leather seat like a storm-gathering shape. His suit probably costs more than our rent. Dark hair pushed back, sharp jawline, and eyes that could strip paint off walls. He's leaning forward, one hand braced on the table, and he's yelling at my pregnant sister. "Do you have any idea who I am?" His voice carries low and lethal. "Incompetent. You seat walk-ins at a reserved table and expect..." I don't hear the rest because I'm already moving. The wine bottle hits the bar with a thunk. My apron catches on the corner of a chair and I yank it free, weaving through tables, past startled diners who've gone silent. The entire restaurant has turned into a held breath. Sophia's backed against the hostess stand, one hand protective over her belly. 7 months pregnant and her face is blotchy red, tears already tracking down her cheeks. Something primal and furious uncoils in my chest. "Hey!" I step between them, shoulder angled to block his view of her. "I don't care who you are. You don't get to yell at pregnant women." Up close, he's even more intimidating. Broad shoulders, expensive cologne, and a scar that cuts through his left eyebrow. His eyes are dark, not brown, something deeper, almost black in this lighting. Those eyes lock onto mine, and the air shifts. "Luce, don't..." Sophia whispers behind me. But I'm not done. "So here's what's going to happen." I cross my arms, chin up. "You're going to sit back down, lower your voice, and we'll sort out the table situation like adults. Or you can go to hell. The restaurant is a tomb now. Even the kitchen has gone quiet." His men, because of course he has men, 2 of them in suits at the neighboring booth, tense like coiled springs. One reaches inside his jacket, but the man in front of me doesn't move. Doesn't blink, then his mouth curves, slow, dangerous. The kind of smile that makes you reconsider every choice that led you to this moment. "Take me there. Bellissima." His voice drops an octave, intimate despite the audience. He's looking at me like I'm the only person in the room. Like I didn't just tell him to go to hell in front of witnesses. Like I'm something rare he's been searching for. I blink. "What? Hell?" He tilts his head, still smiling. "If you're the one taking me, I'll go willingly." Heat crawls up my neck. This is not how this was supposed to go. He was supposed to storm out or escalate or anything but this. "Mr. Vitale." The manager appears at my elbow, wringing his hands. "Please, there's been a misunderstanding. Vitale." The name lands like a stone in water, ripples spreading outward. I know that name. Everyone in Brooklyn knows that name. No misunderstanding. Vitale's gaze hasn't left mine. "Your hostess made an error. Your waitress corrected my behavior. I appreciate honesty." He reaches into his jacket. His men relax fractionally, and pulls out a wallet. Removes several bills. Hundreds. He places them on the hostess stand, then adds a business card on top. "For the inconvenience." His fingers brush mine as he steps back, and I feel it down to my toes. "Dinner, you and me, Friday." Then he's moving toward the exit, his men flanking him, and the restaurant erupts into whispered conversation. I'm still standing there, heart hammering, staring at the business card. Alessandro Vitale, a phone number embossed in gold. Sophia's hand grips my elbow. "Luce, oh my God, do you know who that was?" I pick up the card, the bills, 500s, $1,000 for a table mix-up. "Trouble," I say quietly. That was trouble. I tear the card in half and drop it in the trash. By closing time, my hands have finally stopped shaking. Sophia's been crying on and off for the past 3 hours, apologizing between hiccups, and I've reassured her at least 50 times that she's not fired and not in danger, and I'll handle it if anyone comes back. The manager gave her the rest of the night off. She's in the back office now, feet propped up. Eating the tiramisu I snuck her. I'm wiping down table 6. The wine couple left a decent tip despite the drama, when my phone buzzes. Unknown number. I almost don't answer. But something makes me swipe. "Hello?" The card you tore up had my personal number. That voice, smooth and dark as espresso. I'm impressed you threw it away. Most people keep it as insurance. I gripped the phone tighter. How did you get this number? I own half of Brooklyn, Bellissima. Getting a phone number is the least impressive thing I've done today. A pause. Though watching you tear up my card was close. Are you calling to threaten me? Because I'm not apologizing for... I'm calling to confirm Friday, 8 o'clock. I'll send a car. I'm not having dinner with you. You told me to go to hell. The least you can do is show me the way. Despite everything, my mouth twitches. That's not how this works. How does it work, then? You don't yell at pregnant women. I don't have dinner with men who do. Silence. Long enough that I think he might have hung up. Then, you're right. I was out of line tonight. Your sister made an honest mistake, and I handled it poorly. His voice has lost the playful edge. I'm not apologizing to make you say yes to dinner. I'm apologizing because it's true, but I still want dinner. Because you're the first person in 10 years to call me on my behavior to my face. I should hang up. I should block this number and forget Alessandro Vitale exists. I have to close the restaurant. That's not a no. It's not a yes either. I grabbed the last dirty wine glass. Good night, Mr. Vitale. Sandro. What? Call me Sandro. Mr. Vitale is my father. I hang up before I can respond. Sophia's waiting by the back door when I finish closing, her jacket barely zipping over her belly. It's April and still cold enough to see your breath. You should have let me stay and help. She adjusts her purse strap. You're 7 months pregnant. You've helped enough. I lock the door behind us, checking it twice. The streetlights cast orange pools on the sidewalk, and somewhere a car alarm wails. We walk toward the subway, arms linked. Sophia's shorter than me, rounder now with the pregnancy, her dark hair in a messy bun. We have the same eyes. Our mother's eyes, dark brown and wide set. That's where the similarities end. Sophia's soft where I'm sharp, hopeful where I'm cautious. Loose. She stops walking. There's something I need to tell you. The tone makes my stomach clench. What's wrong? The baby's father. She won't meet my eyes. It's Rico. The world tilts. Rico, my ex. The man who spent 2 years slowly eroding my self-worth, who'd yell then apologize, then yell louder, who checked my phone and isolated me from friends and made me feel like I was crazy for questioning him. The man I finally left 6 months ago. Sophia. My voice comes out strangled. Tell me you're joking. It happened right after you two broke up. He was upset, I was upset for you, we drank too much and... She's crying now, tears streaming. I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you. But then I found out I was pregnant, and he disappeared and I didn't know how... I pull her into a hug before she can finish, her belly pressed between us. Shh, it's okay. It's not your fault. You hate me. I could never hate you. I smooth her hair back. Rico's a bastard. He took advantage. This isn't on you. She pulls back, wiping her nose. There's more. Of course there is. He owes money. A lot of money. Gambling debts. She's shaking now. $50,000. To the Vitale family. The name hits like a punch. That's why Mr. Vitale was at the restaurant tonight. He was meeting Rico about the debt. But Rico didn't show up. He's been dodging them for weeks. Sophia grips my arms. Luce, what if they come after me? After the baby? They won't. I make my voice firm even though my heart's racing. That's not how it works. They can't collect from you. But I don't actually know how it works. I don't know anything about the Vitale family except rumors and whispers and the weight of that name. I walk Sophia to her apartment in Sunset Park. 3 flights up in a building with peeling paint and a door that sticks. Her roommate's working the night shift at the hospital, so I stay until she falls asleep on the couch, one hand on her belly. My phone buzzes as I'm locking her door from the outside. Unknown number again. Different from before, I answer warily. Hello? Lucia Moretti, 26. Works at Giordano's, been there 4 years. Associate's degree from community college. Clean record. 1 younger sister, Sophia, 22. Currently pregnant. A woman's voice, efficient and cold. Mr. Vitale wants you to know he's done his homework. He'll see you Friday at 8. The line goes dead. I stand in the dim hallway, fluorescent lights flickering overhead, and feel the walls closing in. The flowers start arriving Tuesday morning. I'm opening the restaurant, early shift, prep work for lunch service, when the delivery guy shows up with a massive arrangement. 24 red roses in a crystal vase, The card reads, "Hell seems lonely. Reconsider. S." I give them to the busboy for his girlfriend. Wednesday, another arrangement. White lilies this time, elegant and understated. Or I can bring heaven to you. S. Those go to the bartender. Thursday, wildflowers in a mason jar. Daisies and lavender and something purple I don't recognize. The card, I'm running out of flowers. Running out of patience. But I won't run out of interest. S. I throw those away before anyone can claim them. Friday morning, I'm elbow deep in marinara sauce when Sophia calls. "Luce, he's here." My heart stops. "Who's where?" "Sandro, Mr. Vitale, he's at the restaurant. He's asking for you." I wipe my hands on my apron, ignoring the looks from the line cooks. "Tell him I'm busy." He said he'll wait. "Sophia, he brought more flowers. And he's being really polite." The manager's practically bowing. I close my eyes. Count to 10. I'll be right there. The dining room's empty this time of morning, tables set for lunch, sunlight streaming through the front windows. Sandro's at the same back booth from the previous week, but this time he's alone. No men in suits, just him, a cup of espresso, and an enormous bouquet of sunflowers taking up half the table. He stands when he sees me. Tailored charcoal suit today, no tie, top button undone. He looks like money and danger wrapped in Italian wool. Bellissima. That smile again. Slow and devastating. "You've been avoiding me." "I've been working." I don't sit down. "You can't keep showing up here. You're disrupting business. I'm a customer. I'm ordering lunch." He gestures to the menu. "The osso buco. And your company." "I'm not on the menu." Pity. His eyes track over me, leisurely and thorough. "You should be the specialty." Heat crawls up my neck again. Damn him. "What do you want?" "Dinner. Tonight." I've been clear about that. And I've been clear about my answer. "Then let's discuss your sister's situation." His voice drops, loses the playful edge. "Sit down, Lucia, please." The please makes me pause. There's something different in his expression now. Serious, almost gentle. I slide into the booth across from him, hands folded on the table. "What situation?" "Rico Salerno, 50,000 in gambling debts. He's been missing for 3 weeks." Sandro picks up his espresso, takes a slow sip. "He owes my family money. When a debtor disappears, the debt transfers. To who? Next of kin, spouse, children." His eyes hold mine. In this case, the mother of his child. My blood turns to ice. "Sophia, Sophia." He sets down the cup. "By law, our law, she's responsible. I can claim future earnings, put liens on assets, garnish wages, or he leans back casual. We can make an arrangement. She has nothing. She's 22 and pregnant and working hostess shifts. You can't. I can do whatever I want, Bellissima. That's the problem with owing money to people like me." He doesn't sound proud or threatening, just factual. "But I don't want to hurt your sister. I want to make a deal with you." "What kind of deal?" 6 weeks. You work for me. Whatever I need. Hostess at my club, assistant, errands, company at events. You do what I ask, no questions. At the end of 6 weeks, Rico's debt is forgiven. Sophia and the baby are clear. I stare at him. "You want me to what? Be your employee? You're my associate, my companion when needed, my eyes and ears in certain situations." He tilts his head. "I'm not asking you to do anything illegal or immoral, just be useful. Why me? Because you're the only person who's told me the truth in the past decade. Because you threw yourself between me and your sister without hesitation. Because I want to know what else you'd do if properly motivated." He leans forward. "Because you intrigue me, Lucia Moretti, and I'm a man who indulges his curiosities. I should walk away. I should tell him no, get a lawyer, call the police. Except the police don't handle Vitale family business. Everyone knows that. I have a job. I can't just abandon it. You have 2 jobs now. We'll work around your schedule at Giordano's. My needs are primarily evenings and weekends." His smile returns, smaller this time. "I'm not unreasonable. You're blackmailing me into working for you by threatening my pregnant sister. That's the definition of unreasonable. I prefer to call it negotiation." He slides a business card across the table. Same embossed gold, different number. "This is my office line. Think about it. You have until Monday to decide. After that, I pursue traditional collection methods." I pick up the card, hating the weight of it in my palm. "And if I say no, then Sophia pays. Your choice, Bellissima. It's always your choice. He stands, drops $100 bill on the table for an espresso he barely touched, and walks out. The sunflowers sit there, bright and mocking. I call him Monday morning. The office is in Manhattan, 40th floor of a building in Midtown with a lobby full of marble and security that makes TSA look casual. Sandro's assistant, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and no-nonsense glasses, escorts me to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Sandro's behind a massive desk, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. He holds up one finger when he sees me, wait, and finishes the conversation. When he hangs up, his smile is genuine. You came. I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. You just don't like your options. He stands, buttoning his jacket. Sit. We'll discuss terms. The leather chair across from his desk is probably worth more than my car. I perch on the edge, hands in my lap. 6 weeks, I say. Debt forgiven. Nothing illegal, nothing immoral. I need that in writing. Already prepared. He slides a folder across the desk. Contract, standard employment terms, NDA, liability waiver. My lawyer's contact information if you want it reviewed. I flip through pages of legal jargon. You had this ready. I knew you'd say yes. You'd do anything for your sister. He leans back in his chair. That kind of loyalty is rare, valuable. What exactly do you need me to do? For now, shadow me. I have meetings, dinners, business to conduct. I need someone I trust to observe, take notes, offer perspective. Someone who isn't afraid to tell me when I'm being an asshole. Despite myself, my mouth twitches. That seems to be my specialty. It's a better specialty than you realize. He stands, comes around the desk. Up close, he smells like sandalwood and something darker, earthier. I've surrounded myself with yes men for too long. They're useful, but they don't tell me the truth. You will. Why do you think I'll tell you the truth? Because you have nothing to lose. You're already here under duress. You already hate me. That kind of honesty is refreshing. I sign the contract before I can change my mind. Sandro doesn't let me sit with the comfortable distance of his desk between us. He gestures to a low seating area by the windows, and waits until I choose the chair that keeps my back to solid wall rather than glass. Then takes the other one, an observer pretending not to notice what I've just told him about how I move through rooms. He notices. He files it, the way he does everything. His attention is a quiet, relentless tide lapping at the edges of me, eroding places I thought were rock. Today is simple, he says. 2 meetings, one with a developer, one with a contractor who thinks I forgot how to do math. You will listen. If you see a lie, speak. If you see a weakness, mark it. His gaze drifts, not to my face but to my hands. You bite your nail when you distrust someone. Don't. It gives you away. You're assuming I'll distrust people. I'm assuming you'll recognize yourself in them. He doesn't smirk. He doesn't need to. I lean back with studied ease. And what do I recognize in you? That I'm the man who put a clock over your life and called it mercy. I expect triumph. I get something nearer to regret, noted, I say, and clamp my hands in my lap where he can't read them. The developer shows up with a grin like a billboard, and a PowerPoint deck printed on thick paper he shouldn't have wasted money on. He talks about views, amenities, concierge-level everything, and pretends the affordable housing units are a generous impulse rather than the minimum legal requirement. Sandro lets him go for 7 minutes, then starts asking about setbacks and load-bearing walls, and whether their luxury rooftop pool violates the shade line on the park across the street. The developer sweats. I ask him about the 3rd egress on the 6th floor. He flounders and I scribble. And when he leaves with a polished promise to circle back, Sandro doesn't look at me so much as he angles his body in my direction as if tuning a signal. 3rd egress. It wasn't on any of his notes. If it's missing, the fire marshal will shut them down after pre-inspection. He nods. The nod carries weight. What else? The pool is aspirational nonsense. He'll cut it and still sell the units. Sandro's mouth tilts. He thinks I don't know that, but I want to see if he'll lie to my face about it for a better margin. Isn't that standard? In this town? He shrugs. Yes. Doesn't mean I reward it. The contractor meeting is uglier. A man in his late 50s with cement dust at the seams of his jeans rolls in a dolly with crates of tile samples. Already defensive. He calls Sandro kid, like he doesn't realize men have disappeared for less. I watch the line of Sandro's jaw go still and flat. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't have to. You padded labor on the after-hours work, he says, almost conversational. You build the same crew in 2 places at once. The man blusters. I ask for his timesheets like it's an afterthought and circle the duplicate entries in red. He stares at me, not at Sandro, and makes the mistake of narrowing his eyes. Who's the girl? The person who found your fraud, Sandro says, and that is the last time the man speaks to me like that. By late afternoon, I know the rhythms of his office. The espresso at 11, the way his assistant, her name is Marta, places files exactly parallel to the edge of his desk, the steady murmur of Italian when he speaks to his grandmother, the brief pauses where he looks at the river and turns his ring with his thumb as if it's an absent worry stone. I don't ask about the ring. He doesn't mention it. He walks me to the private elevator at 5 like it's a habit, and I only realize halfway down that he knows I'm counting the floors by the flicker of the numbers and mapping exit points without consciously choosing to. He says, if anyone ever pressures you in a meeting, move your chair 2 inches to the left. It throws their pattern. People who intimidate rely on angles. How do you know that? I terrify people for a living. That a job title now? It's a skill set. The car stops. He doesn't step out first. He angles his body so no one is at my back. I don't thank him. I don't have to. It's on his face when the doors open, and he does not smile, but I feel the warm echo of it all the same. I keep my shifts at the restaurant because he kept his promise. I work mornings at Giordano's, evenings with him. Sophia pouts, claims I never sit anymore, and then falls asleep mid-complaint with her head in my lap while the Food Network murmurs in the background. She hums when I stroke her hair, the same tune she used when we were kids and the lights went out in summer storms. I press my palm to her belly and the baby kicks, a sturdy little hello that makes my vision blur. At Sandro's club, I expect neon and velvet ropes and a parade of the worst men New York has to offer. He gives me an office attached to his, a glass-walled rectangle overlooking a bar that glows like a vein of molten copper. The staff calls him boss with a weight that's respect rather than fear. They call me Luce or Miss Moretti, depending on how brave they feel. And though there is a hostess stand out front with 2 women who could double as models, I am never stationed there. You shadow me, Sandro said, not them. So I sit in on vendor meetings and licensing check-ins. I quietly shortlist the bartenders who comp too many drinks and note the bouncer who threw out the right guy for groping a girl who didn't want to be touched. When a delivery is missing 3 crates of top-shelf gin, I track the paper trail to a distributor who's been slicing inventory for 6 months, then hand Sandro a neat sheet with times, dates, and names. He doesn't ask how I got the security cam footage. He just looks at me like I've handed him a gift. You did this in a day. You didn't hire me to look pretty in your office. I hired you because you were going to impress me and pretend you weren't. Unfortunate for your ego that I don't care about impressing you. Fortunate for my operations that you do your job anyway. At 11 one night, he takes me to a business dinner that is suspiciously like a date. We sit at a table near the kitchen pass because he says he likes to watch how restaurants move. He orders grilled branzino and a salad for me without looking at the menu, which should irritate me but somehow doesn't when it's exactly what I would have chosen. He asks me about my mother. I tell him about her hands, always smelling like basil and lemon zest, the way she found recipes in my grandmother's head and learned them like a new language. He tells me about Sunday afternoons in a walk-up in Bensonhurst, men with desserts they were not asked to bring, how his grandmother would slip him folded napkins of cash to hold for her so she wouldn't seem rude when she didn't accept it. Do you still go every Sunday? I ask. He looks almost surprised. Yes. You bring dessert now. I bring everything. A pause. I don't show up empty-handed to the only place in the city I'm a grandson and not a weapon. The words catch in my chest. I look away and pretend to study the choreography at the pass. The chef's nod, the expeditor's low command, plates headed for tables like small ships under orders. He walks me back to the car and does not touch me. He never touches without asking. He positions his hand near the small of my back, hovers heat and intent, and lets me decide whether proximity becomes contact. Sometimes I step closer, sometimes I don't. Every time he registers it, recalibrates. Sophia's baby shower spills across the restaurant like a pastel storm a few Saturdays later. The servers are gentle with her, The way a city learns to be soft in small pockets, and our boss lets us string paper garlands between rafters so long as we take them down before dinner service. I get her a diaper subscription because I am practical and poor, and love makes you honest about both. Our friends bring onesies with snarky slogans. She cries at all of it. 7 months pregnant means tears hover behind everything. The room quiets when Sandro appears in the doorway, carrying a car seat in one hand and a stroller in the other, as if they weigh nothing. 2 of his men bring in the rest, boxes stacked with clean lines, cream leather and brushed steel and that subtle logo that says, "This costs more than your rent," without having to say it. "You can't be here," I hiss, as he steps close enough that only I can hear it. "I was invited." He nods toward Sophia. Sophia, traitor to my boundaries, beams and waddles toward him. He sets everything down and takes her gently into his arms like he's practiced this. Like the bulk of a pregnant body is sacred weight he knows how to hold. She sobs into his lapel and probably soaks it through with mascara. He doesn't flinch. "For the baby," he says when she pulls away, wiping her face with his handkerchief. "No strings," I pull him aside. "Why?" "Because she is yours. Because you will never let me do anything for you. But you will let me do everything for her." He glances at Sophia, laughing through tears with her friends, tentative peace on her face. "Because I yelled at her, and I won't be that man again. You threatened her with a debt. I gave you a way to remove it." He doesn't bother pretending saint. He just looks at me, level. "I'm trying, Luce, not for a ledger, for you." He leaves before cake, as if he knows to exit on a beat that won't overshadow the day. He doesn't kiss my cheek. He doesn't linger at the door. He gives me a nod that feels like a promise, and disappears into daylight so bright it makes him look like a ghost someone loved before he became a story. On a Tuesday, he brings me espresso and then pretends he didn't. The cup appears near my keyboard at the club with the exact ratio of sugar to bitterness I prefer, and no note, just the faint heat of his recent touch on the ceramic. I sip, don't thank him, and he turns a page in a file he already read last night because he likes to hold papers twice. Once for content and once for weight. His grandmother becomes a person in my life before I ever meet her. He mentions her in halves. Her garden, her stubborn knee, the way she pronounces certain English words as if they offended the Italian ones. She calls bagels the circles, he says. And for the first time, I see the boy inside the man. His mouth softens. His shoulders ease. He is less weapon, more human. He asks me if my father is in the picture. "Not since we were kids," I tell him. "He left when I was 9. My mother didn't teach us to hate him. She taught us to expect nothing from him, which is worse and better all at once." "So you learned to build what you needed." "So I learned to be the building." He looks at me a long time. "I like your architecture." The first thread arrives on a Thursday afternoon when I leave Sophia's appointment with the OB. Her blood pressure is good. The baby is head down. She is tired of her body, and enchanted by it in exactly equal measure. We stop at a bodega for ginger ale, step back into a light rain, and a voice behind us says, "Princess, Rico." It isn't a dagger of sound so much as a familiar dull blade. It scrapes across the tender parts of me I've wrapped in new skin. He's thinner. He's wearing a jacket he didn't pay for. His eyes have the jitter of too much, too late. He smiles like he thinks it might still work. "You look good," he says, and his gaze flicks to Sophia's belly. "Both of you." Sophia steps behind me on instinct. My hand is already in my purse, around the pepper spray I carry because girls who leave men like him keep tools near the bone. "What do you want?" He leans against the shuttered gate of a closed storefront, like this is a casual conversation between former lovers. To talk, to see my kid. "You don't get to say that word." His eyes go flat. "That's not up to you, Luce. I got rights. You forfeited them when you abandoned her. You think a judge cares about feelings?" He smiles, and it's the one I used to mistake for charm. "I care about numbers. 50,000 of them, plus interest. You help me out, I help you out. Our little family stays intact." "You don't have a family." He's close enough now that I smell the cold metal edge of rain on leather. Sophia's breathing like a bird, trying not to be caught. I step toward him so she doesn't have to. "You should go," I say. "Before I make a call, you can't talk your way around." "You going to call your new boyfriend?" He says it like a slur, like Sandro is a synonym for mistake. He won't always be there to pick up. He's always there. comes a voice from behind me, and then Sandro is simply in the moment, stepping out from the mouth of the alley as if he was carved from the wet brick and decided to take breath now. I didn't call him. He must have had someone on me, a shadow I didn't see because I haven't yet learned all the places he places his care. It should anger me. It doesn't. Sophia's shoulder drops, the first exhale she's had since Rico's voice cut the air. Sandro, I say, and he touches the back of my knuckles, the barest kiss of contact. It's enough to tell me he's reading pulse and steadiness and deciding how much force to bring to the scene. Rico tries for swagger. This your keeper now? Funny. Thought you didn't like men who raise their voice. Sandro doesn't look at him the way he looks at men. He looks at him the way he looks at numbers, a column that doesn't add up. You spoke a thread into the air that belongs to me. His tone is almost bored. That was your second mistake. What was the first? Believing any part of her life is negotiable. Rico steps, like maybe he thinks having a body means having a chance. Two men appear at the ends of the block, suits that somehow don't look strange in the rain, eyes that take in Sophia's belly and translate it into mission. Sandro doesn't glance to signal them. He doesn't need to. Go home, Sandro says to Sophia, soft, and then to me. With Marco. He's to your right. A man I hadn't clocked steps forward with an umbrella like this is a polite night out and not a recalibration of the world. He will take you to your apartment. You will lock the door. You will not open it unless you hear my voice. I'm not leaving you. You are keeping your sister safe. He tilts his head, and it's not quite a plea. It's trust laid out like a bridge. Please. The please is a key. It turns a lock inside me I didn't know I'd kept shut. I nod, take Sophia's hand, feel the tremble in her bones ease as Marco ushers us to a black SUV that wasn't there a second ago because Sandro does not bring half measures to a problem. We watch in the side mirror as Sandro steps closer to Rico and talks with his hands in his pockets like this is a chat in a coffee shop. Rico gestures, big and sloppy, like television taught him how men perform power. Sandro leans in and speaks, and whatever he says turns Rico's face the color of old paper. By the time we reach Sophia's building, a text arrives on my phone from a number I've saved without admitting it. It's handled. Door. Lock. I want to know what handled means, but I don't need the details pressed into my skin. I need Sophia to nap. I need to boil water for pasta so there's a smell in the air that says home. I need to sit on the floor while she sleeps and lean my head against the couch and remember that breathing is an act we choose when panic wants to hold it hostage. When Sandro shows up at midnight, he doesn't knock. He says my name through the door and I open it. He looks the way rain looks after it stops. Dark hair damp at the temples, shirt clinging in clean lines. There's an energy around him like a storm that just moved past and left the pressure different in its wake. He threatened to claim the baby, I say before he speaks. He won't again. He glances toward the bedroom where Sophia is sleeping, then back to me. He is in custody. For now. For what? A violation that didn't exist until this morning. His mouth curves without humor. My lawyer filed a restraining order at 9. He violated it at 4. He will sit in a cell until his hearing because the city is slow and I am fast. You planned this. I planned for him to behave like himself. I rub at my temple. What happens when he gets out? We make sure there's nowhere for him to stand. He steps closer, not touching, not assuming, just offering presence like a warm wall. No one touches your family. No one. The words hit the parts of me that are always on duty, the sentry at the gate who never sleeps. She sits down for the first time in years. It makes me foolish. It makes me brave. Why me? It comes out a whisper, but not a weak one. There are other girls, easier, less me, because you are you. His voice is steady, because you told me a truth I admired even when it cut. Because when you are afraid, you move in front of the person who cannot afford to be. Because I am built to protect and you are built to be worth protecting. And somewhere in that geometry I am less of a weapon and more of a man. He could kiss me then. The moment hangs ripe and electric. He doesn't. He waits the way he waits for my steps on a staircase, matching my pace rather than pulling ahead. He doesn't move until my hand lifts on its own and touches the scar at his eyebrow, a faint line like a sentence he learned too young. He breathes out as if that touch is confession and absolution, then steps back. Pack a bag in the morning, he says. You are not safe here. I have locks. I have more. I can't just leave. My life because you tell me to. I'm asking you to come, because staying is a risk I can calculate too, easily. He hesitates for the first time since I've known him. Please, the second please in a day. He's going to spoil me. I nod because I am spoiling myself, because I am tired of being the castle and never the guest. He kisses my forehead. It is nothing. It is everything. His penthouse is one of those spaces that shifts your sense of what rooms can be. The elevator opens directly into it, the way the rich make arrivals a magic trick, and the world unfurls in a spill of glass and stone and light. It isn't ostentatious. It's curated. Dark floors that drink in the city and give back warmth. A long wall of books in Italian and English. Plants that are alive because someone loves them, not because someone waters them on a schedule. A kitchen that looks cooked in, not staged for a magazine. Knives with real work on their steel and a bowl of lemons near the stove that smells like home. Shoes there, he says, and points to a bench by the door like he's embarrassed to have a rule. Security system will register you. Cameras only in the common spaces, none in bedrooms. He looks at me long enough that I hear what he's saying beneath the words. I didn't put them there before, but I'm telling you so you know. I appreciate the lack of surveillance in my sleep. I prefer people unobserved when they dream. He gives me a guest room that is softer than I want to admit I need. The bed holds me like a thoughtful hug. The bathroom has soaps that smell like fig and linen, and a towel warmer that makes me laugh because of course. There is a door between my room and his that stays closed, a line drawn and honored. And though I fall asleep replaying the angle of his mouth near mine, I wake to the clink of mugs rather than the weight of a man who didn't ask. By morning, the city is a watercolor of gray and gold. He's on the balcony with 2 mugs and a blanket tossed careless over a chair. Damp hair, bare feet. He doesn't turn when I slide the glass door open because he has already clocked me in the reflection. He hands me a mug without looking, and the warmth sinks into my fingers, into the part of me the night chilled. I have to go to work, I say after the first sip. Giordano's will fire me if I just stop showing up. They may fire me anyway for breathing near you too much. I called your boss. He winces when I glare. I told him a family situation requires your mornings for a week. I will call him again if needed. You still have a job there if you wish it. You can't buy me a life. I can buy you time and safety. What you fill them with is yours. The day is a study in control. 2 cars follow us a distance. The lobby staff knows my name by noon because Sandro's world is a net, and if you are inside it, you are a point that must be monitored. It should feel like a cage. It doesn't. It feels like standing inside the perimeter of a man's promise and watching him reinforce it every hour without complaint. He puts a necklace in my hand at lunch, and I almost hand it back on reflex. It's a simple chain, thin as a whisper, with a small gold disc that sits cool and unassuming in my palm. He doesn't try to clasp it around my neck. He just says, "It's a tracker." I make a face. Romantic. I prefer you alive. He doesn't apologize for it. You can keep it in your pocket if you don't want to wear it. If it triggers, I come. And if I don't want you to come, you say that, and I'll stand down. He doesn't flinch at the words. He means them. Consent isn't only for beds. That lands stronger than he knows. I swallow and put the chain on, the disc disappearing against my throat. His eyes dip once, quick, as if he wants to see it there, and force himself not to want anything too loudly. The first attempt comes on a windy evening that tastes like rain and metal. I'm covering an early dinner shift at Giordano's because Sal, our Monday day shift server, called out with a cold, and I couldn't stand the thought of someone else dropping plates in my space. The lull between 5 and 6 is quiet. I wipe down table 6 like muscle memory, and hum something my mother used to sing when sauce simmered. A man I don't recognize sits at the bar. He orders water and watches me like he's a customer deciding on the menu, except his eyes keep tracking the door. When 2 more walk in, 1 to the bathroom, 1 to the back hallway, I feel the wire inside my spine pluck tight. Take a break. Marta's voice is in my ear. Not Marta, damn it my boss Carla, but my brain is already translating people into Sandro's grid. I smile at a couple lingering over cannoli and then pretend I forgot something in the kitchen. I push through the swinging door, let it ease shut rather than slam, and grab my phone with hands that don't shake because I refuse them the privilege. The pendant sits warm against my throat. I lift it with my thumb and forefinger and press. It vibrates like a heartbeat. Sandro picks up before the first ring could finish existing. Where? Giordano's 3, maybe 4. They're not here for a table. Move. I move. The kitchen is a narrow artery full of line cooks who look up, read my face, and keep their bodies between me and the back door. I don't take the alley. I crawl behind the dessert case and slip into the office while Carla looks me dead in the eye and nods like a general, acknowledging her soldier is doing exactly what she should. I lock the door. I slide the filing cabinet in front of it because I might be small, but I can use leverage like a second language. The first gunshot is a memory before it's a sound. It rips the hum of the place in half. People scream. The second shot is louder, closer. My palms go slick. I think of Sophia on her couch, of tiny feet folding and unfolding inside her like she's knitting a person in protection. I think of Sandro's voice and the shape of his mouth on please. The door handle jerks. A fist hammers the wood. "Open up! Call the police!" Carla shouts from the other side, steady and furious. "Do not open that door. Police," a voice sneers. "Cute. Cute," says another voice, lower, colder, and Sandro is suddenly there, not on the door but in the hallway, in the world, in this moment. He doesn't roar. He issues, "Drop it." The next seconds happen with a clarity that feels like a drug. Feet scuffle. A body hits the floor. Another shot, muffled by the meat of someone else. A grunt that is an oath. A string of Italian that sounds like prayer and promise and profanity braided into one rope. The banging stops. The filing cabinet wobbles as weight leaves the door. I count 3 full breaths and then 4 because patience is a blade too. And when I slide the cabinet back and open the door, Sandro is there. Shoulder pressed to the frame, jacket askew. Shirt darkening at the left seam with blood. Oh God. The words are out before I can swallow them. Sandro. It's a graze. He's right. High on the shoulder, a red line angry with heat. You're okay. You're bleeding. You're okay. He says it like he has to name my safety before he's allowed to name his pain. 2 men are on the floor, one moaning, one very quiet. The one who moans has his arm at an angle arms are not supposed to take. Sandro's men have them pinned without drama. Someone else, Marco, is speaking to the hostess, calm and precise. Customers huddle behind overturned tables, eyes wide, alive. Loose. Sandro's voice pulls me back. Look at me, I look. The world shrinks down to his eyes. A night that isn't empty but full. We're leaving, he says. No, I can't leave Carla. I brought enough men for both. He touches my wrist. Please. The third please breaks me open and puts me back together in a different configuration. He moves me like choreography, out the back hallway, through the kitchen that smells like garlic and adrenaline, into the cool mouth of the alley where cars idle like patient beasts. He puts me into the back seat and gets in beside me instead of the front, and only then does he let his hand shake once against his thigh. Let me see. I already have a dish towel in my hand, because my body did the math before my mind got there. I press it to his shoulder and he hisses out a breath through his teeth. It looks worse than it is, he says. People always say that when it's worse than it looks. He smiles, faint. You keep arguing with me. I must be fine. Back at his place, no, back at the only place that feels like we can breathe, I push him into a chair in the kitchen and raid drawers until I find a first aid kit. He's left-handed, which makes it easier to get his shirt off without making him move too much. It sticks to the wound and he bites the inside of his cheek rather than make a sound that will make me wince. I clean around the bullet's kiss with careful swipes and hate how my hands shake anyway. This is your life, I say. And I don't mean blood or guns. I mean the way violence follows power, the way shadows follow fire. This is my life protecting what's mine. He doesn't flinch as I pour saline over torn skin, and you're mine, Luce, whether you admit it yet or not. I pause, cloth hovering just above him. He does not press. He sits, patient under my hands, a man who would wait as long as it takes for a bird to come back to a windowsill. Say it again, I whisper, not because I need to hear it, but because I need to watch his face shape the words. You're mine. No gloat, no claim like a brand, a vow laid black and clean between us. Not because I own you, because I choose you, every hour, because you saw me at my worst, and still stepped closer. I tape gauze to gauze, let my fingertips linger at the edge of his skin. I want to say I hate him less. It would be a lie. I don't hate him at all, and that terrifies me more than gunfire. Stay, he says. He means the night. He means the next day. He means a kind of life I don't let myself imagine because the edges are too bright. I'm already here, he showers, while I sit on the floor with my back to the Side of the bed I'm not sleeping in because sleep is an animal that skirts the edges of the room and only comes when you pretend not to want it. He comes out with a clean shirt and damp hair, and a line of exhaustion under his mouth that makes him look human in a way I ache for. "Come here," he says softly. And I do. We don't touch at first. We stand like two people who haven't decided yet whether distance is safety or cruelty. He watches me and I watch him, and the watching becomes its own kind of intimacy, until it's heavier than either of us can hold. "I haven't. Not since Rico," I say, words careful, as if I could place them and they would stay put. We go at your pace. The words slot into the spaces where fear lives. You say stop, we stop. You're safe here. Always. He steps closer because I haven't stepped back. He raises his hand and pauses. A courtesy, a ritual, a question without a mark. I nod. He touches my jaw with 2 fingers. It is both cautious and sure. Tell me if my touch is too much. It's not. He smells like clean cotton and the ghost of smoke from a memory that isn't here. He unbuttons the first button of his shirt and waits. I reach up and trace the line the bullet grazed without pressing. I kiss just beside it because I can't help myself. He inhales and stills, and then his mouth is near my ear. A murmur rather than a claim. "May I?" "Yes." He kisses me like I am both a thing he has wanted for a long time and a thing he doesn't intend to break by wanting. He doesn't force my mouth open. He asks. He learns what yes feels like in the shape of my hands, climbing his shoulders, and what please sounds like when I say it without words. When he undresses me, he does it the way he opens a file. Curious, meticulous, reverent. He asks permission for every button, every inch of skin. When I hesitate at my shirt, a ghost ripples through the room. He doesn't chase it away with noise. He looks at me as if I am the only authority on my body he will ever acknowledge. "You're beautiful," he says. And the word is not about shape or size or anything that can be measured. Every part. But only if you're ready. I'm ready. My voice shakes. It isn't fear. It's the earthquake that comes when walls finally let sun in. He lays me back on his bed, because somewhere in the last hour we moved there without me noticing, and that fact, the ease of it, makes my throat tight. The sheets smell like cedar, and something that is just him. He hovers above me, a planet within reach waiting still. "Tell me what you need," he says. "You." I don't try for poetry, just you. When he pushes into me, he watches my face, not his pleasure. He waits for the breath I hold to release. He waits for the way my body makes room for this. For him. For us. And he doesn't move until I nod and pull his shoulder, until my knees tilt, until my hand finds the back of his neck and anchors there. "Okay?" he asks, breath a brush on my mouth. More than okay. He moves the way the sea does when the tide shifts. The patience of inevitability. The rhythm of a thing that knows where it's going and doesn't need to rush. He says my name like a prayer and a dare, and I say his like a promise and a surrender. He praises quiet and often, not for what I am doing but for what I am, and every word smooths a rough place I didn't think could be gentled. When the moment breaks, it's not fireworks. It's a door opening in a house I've lived in for years and never noticed. He catches me there, in that hush, mouth against my cheek, breath at my temple. He doesn't leave me in it alone. He follows. And then he's there when the world returns, holding me in the soft after, his hand a firm, warm circle at my hip. Somewhere in the weave of our limbs and breath, he reaches with an easy, practiced motion, a protection settled between us not as barrier but as care. And the thought that he planned for my safety in the most intimate of ways makes my eyes sting. "Never letting you go," he says against my hair, voice hoarse with the feeling he doesn't hide. "You and Sophia and that baby. My family now." Tears slip without drama. He kisses them like they belong to him, and I don't stop him. I don't stop him from anything that looks like love. "I love you," I say, because the truth has been lodged under my tongue since the alley, and maybe even before, since a man with a scar and a bad temper smiled at me like I'd crawled out of his nightmare to argue him into better. God help me, I love you. Then let me love you back. He presses his mouth to my forehead like the night he asked me to stay, but deeper, rooted. Let me be a man worthy of you. We lie there with the city moving in its bright, indifferent way beyond the glass, and this small quiet we've built feels like defiance. He doesn't ask me to move in then. He asks something simpler because he is learning not to push the door I open on my own. "Stay the night," he says. "I'm staying," I say. And I mean more than the hours. In the morning, Sophia calls to say the baby has hiccups and it feels like popcorn in her belly. I put her on speaker, and Sandro makes a ridiculous popping sound until she giggles so hard she hiccups too. We plan a grocery run like normal people, argue about brands of olive oil and which tomatoes taste like summer and which are a lie. He puts his hand at the small of my back when an old man with a cart barrels past, and then removes it so he doesn't teach my body a habit it can't have every second. Somehow, somewhere, the ritual of that care becomes a liturgy we both know by heart. The city does not forgive a man like Sandro, peace cheaply. 2 days after he got me out of the restaurant with blood on his shirt and steadiness in his eyes, a message comes in the form of a car idling across from the club with men in it who don't get out. They just watch. When Sandro's guy approaches, they roll up the window and smile. "Rival family," Marco says. "They want to be seen." Sandro doesn't take bait. He takes evidence. He calls a friend not on his payroll and gets a file not in his drawers and begins to pull threads. Names spill out. Numbers. A girlfriend attached to Rico, attached to a woman with a last name that belongs to a table on the other side of the city. Money missing from books that keep other men fed. Favors swapped like knives. He shows me none of it and it's ugly. He shows me the clean summary. The way he shows me all the worst things without the parts that will turn me into a person who can't sleep. He protects, yes. He also trusts. He lays the evidence on the dining table and asks, "Do you see what I see?" I do. He knows I will. He smiles without showing teeth. Good. Then watch me end a problem without starting a war. He dresses like a man going to church and meets a king in a quiet room with windows. He brings papers and calm and me and his phone at the bottom of his jacket pocket. My pendant humming against my pulse while I sit at home and fold laundry like civilians do. He says to the rival head, "Call off your dogs or I expose your sons. Girlfriend for the embezzlement. She thinks you don't know about." He puts photos on the table that show withdrawals in neat $5,000 increments and a little ledger with hearts in the margins. The other man looks at his hands for a long time, then tells his sons to stand down. Sandro walks out with less blood on his shirt than most men walk out of church with after kneeling too hard. He calls me on the sidewalk and says, "It's done." "Rico? Debt forgiven." A pause. "Parental rights will be ended. My lawyers are building an airtight case. You don't have to do that. I do if I want to look your reflection in the eye when you brush your teeth in my bathroom. You think I'm moving in. I think you already live here." I could tell him to slow down. I could ask for time. He gives it to me before I can form the sentences. "When you're ready," he says. "If you're ready, the door is a door. It's not a trap." That night, the city is quiet in a way that makes you think something has been decided. He goes out on the balcony and I find him there, his hands on the railing, his eyes on a piece of sky that belongs to no one. I step up beside him and press my hip to his thigh, my shoulder to his arm. He doesn't look at me because he knows the words I brought are easier if I put them into the dark. "You didn't have to do any of it," I say. "The lawyers, the protection, risking war. I told you to go to hell and you built me a house instead. I'd burn down every family in New York for you." He says it without heat, just simple truth. "You told me the most honest thing anyone said to me in 10 years. It made me want to be a man worth being told worse by you in the future." "You are," I say, and I feel his breath catch. "You protected her, protected me, even when I hated you. Do you still hate me?" I turn his face with my hand, a gentle insistence. I kiss him like an answer. He exhales something that sounds like relief pressed through a prayer. We don't make a ceremony of moving me in. He suggests a drawer. I take 2. He makes space in his closet by shoving suits along the rail, and buying thinner hangers like that will make the act less intimate. I put my toothbrush in a cup next to his, and staring at them together makes my chest hurt, so I go buy a nicer cup and pretend that's why it aches. He marvels at how many pairs of black jeans one woman can own. I marvel at how many white shirts a man can justify. He takes me to see his grandmother on a Sunday because the woman on the balcony told him to bring the woman she kissed into the only place he's a grandson. We stop for pastries he does not bake, but insists must be from a specific place because Nonna will know if they're not. He carries the box like a fragile thing, tells me to kiss her twice, once for each cheek, and absolutely not to call her Ms. anything because she'll throw me out. She is a small woman with a spine like a rod of iron and hands that smell like garlic even before she starts cooking. She looks at me, not at him, and says, "You're the one." I laugh because deflecting praise is my only defense. I'm one of many. You are the one who makes his mouth soft. She taps the corner of his lips with one finger. He swats at her like he's 6, and I fall a little in love with that boy. Good, he needed to remember he has one. We eat too much. We argue about nothing. We hold a baby cousin who sleeps through our noise and wakes only to wave his arms as if conducting us to be louder. Sandro washes dishes because of course he does. His sleeves rolled. His forearms a map of stories I haven't heard. Nona tells me he cried when he broke his arm at 7 and then scolded the doctor for not setting the bone fast enough. He groans in protest and blushes, and I file the color under things to bring out of him often. Later, when we are home and the city lights have finished their nightly flirtation with the river, he looks at me over the kitchen island and says, "Move in with me." He doesn't say it like a command. He says it like a sentence that has been patiently waiting for permission to end with a period. Not because of danger, he adds quickly, as if cutting off my arguments at their knees. Because I need you here. Because I'm a better man when you are beside me. The words are a hand held out. I take it. Yes, I say. He breathes like he ran and stopped. He comes around the island, lifts me onto it like I weigh nothing, like I weigh everything, and kisses me with his hands on the sides of my face, careful even in joy. We laugh into each other's mouths, and it tastes like lemon and salt, and something like relief. The next morning, I go to the restaurant to tell Carla, and she pretends to be mad. "You'll turn bougie on me," she says, then makes me promise I will still cover Saturday lunch when Sal's kid has Little League. I will, I do. I cannot stop being who I am because a man made me feel safe. I can only be more of her. The world tries one more time to take me from the life I've chosen. It tries with a hint rather than a hammer. A woman watching too closely from across a grocery aisle. A guy with a camera on the corner who doesn't lift it when most tourists would. Sandro sees both. His whole body goes quiet. That predator stillness that reads like calm if you don't know what you're watching. He doesn't spiral. He reroutes. He puts himself between me and every possible angle, and guides me out of the store with the press of 2 fingers at my wrist, like a man leading someone he loves across a ballroom floor. Back at the penthouse, he locks the door and leans against it and looks like a person who wants to ask me to please never go anywhere alone again, and also knows he can't, because the woman he loves is the woman who walked between him and a girl with her hand on her belly. "We'll resolve it," he says. "I'll bring them evidence they can't swallow." He does. He brings a file and a rumor and a truth that tastes like iron. He shows a rival that he can end them without touching them. He shows me a future in which he doesn't need to. He shows me a way for us to stand in a city that has made men like him necessary, and then punish them for answering that necessity too well. When the dust begins to settle, when the baby shower thank you notes are written, and the stroller is assembled, and I have a toothbrush that sits next to his like it belonged there before either of us were born, he finds me on the balcony in the thin blue hour before sunrise. He comes up behind me and wraps his arms around my waist with a hesitance he has not afforded any other part of his life, and rests his mouth near the hinge of my jaw. "I'm falling for you," he says, "and it's unnecessary and perfect." "I already fell," I say. He laughs. He holds on without squeezing. He watches the city wake up with me like this is how men like him learn a new language. He speaks it as if he was born to it. The day the papers are filed to terminate Rico's parental rights, the sky looks scrubbed clean, the kind of blue that makes even strangers feel like something is possible. Sandro's lawyer, Vance, a gray-suited wolf with perfect manners, comes to the penthouse with a folder thick as a Bible and a smile thin enough to slip between ribs. He explains it all with diagrams and footnotes, but the gist is simple. Sophia will be safe. The baby will be safe. Rico won't have a legal foothold to stand on if he tries to drag any of us back into his storm. Sophia cries when she signs. She cries for what was and what could have been, and for the tiny pair of socks Sandro tucked into the folder like a talisman. She cries into my shoulder, and then into his, because we are both where her life moved when everything else shifted. When Vance leaves, Sandro stands with his hands on the back of the couch and stares at the door like he's expecting it to open again. He has the look he gets when he's taught a problem to lie down. It's satisfaction tempered with caution. Wolves don't believe in forever. They believe in vigilance that never sleeps. Are we really done? I ask. The word done feels fragile, glass in my mouth. For this part, he says. The paper is a wall. Some men spend their lives trying to find ladders. Then we kick them down. He glances at me. That's my girl. The phrase strikes something inside me that is both tender and fierce. Some part of me that learned to survive alone straightens. Not because I need ownership, but because I choose the version of it that looks like being seen and carried and never caged. Sandro's quiet that night. It isn't distance. It's a recalibration. The way you feel when a long-held breath leaves your lungs. He cooks. He's better than me with knives, faster and neater, and he teases me for rough chopping onions while he dices them into obedient little squares. We eat standing at the island, bodies brushing, and the mundane weight of forks in our hands feels like a benediction. By morning, the next fire sparks the way they always do. Off stage, uninvited, already hot by the time it reaches us. It arrives as a message from Marco. The kind he clicks once and then erases because if there's no record, there's no trail. Rival movement near the restaurant, he says. Nothing overt, watching, waiting. Let them watch, Sandro says. They'll like the show I prepared. He's been making calls at midnight and before dawn, weaving threads. He has IOUs stacked in a ledger that lives in his head, and he knows how to spend them without leaving fingerprints. He doesn't tell me everything. He tells me enough. He goes to meet their head in a daylight room because daylight is where men prove they aren't cowards. He wears a suit that matches the river, a tie that makes his eyes look almost soft, and the ring he fingers when he thinks too hard. He kisses my temple before he leaves and says, "If I am late, it's because I am thorough, not because I am wounded." I know, I say, and it's almost true. At Giordano's, I keep the world small, table numbers, bread baskets, the exact moment to drop the check so it feels like natural rhythm instead of a push. Carla watches the door like she'd throw herself through it if she had to. I love her for it. I hate the necessity. The men don't come inside. They sit in a car across the street and watch as if surveillance can substitute for courage. I feel their eyes sometimes. The way you feel a draft when a window didn't shut right. I ignore it. I work. I laugh with my regulars, and let an old couple tell me about their grandchild, as if babies are the new currency we all agree to trade in. When my shift ends, there's a car idling at the curb I recognize by the way it pretends to be anonymous. Sandro steps out of the driver's seat instead of sending someone for me. And the small defiant joy I feel at that, at the way he still comes himself, is ridiculous and profound. How bad? I ask, sliding into the passenger seat. Not bad. He pulls away from the curb, easy and smooth, surgical. What did you give them? The thing they care about most. Themselves. He glances at me, mouth at a line that means don't ask for details I don't want to lay on your heart. I placed a mirror in front of a man who believes he owns every angle. He didn't like the way it made his face look, and he called off his dogs. For now. His hand finds my thigh, warm through denim, a tether I didn't realize I needed until my breath lengthens under it. I prefer my peace bought this way. We drive over the bridge into a city that always looks like it's pretending to be a postcard. He takes me to a place I didn't expect, a quiet park in Brooklyn where kids still learn to ride bikes on cracked paths, and stoops host entire conversations on summer nights. He points to a brownstone on the corner and says, "I lived there until I was 9. You never told me. You never asked. I didn't know to." He walks me past the stoop where a chalk hopscotch grid fades under footprints, past the window where a plant wills itself into green despite not enough light. And he tells me about a boy who learned to count by sorting poker chips for an uncle who wanted to teach him numbers and the weight of money at the same time. He tells me about the first time he saw a gun, and how it looked smaller than the stories made it. He tells me about the way his mother sang when she was tired, voice low and scratchy, and how he didn't understand she was singing herself awake more than she was singing him to sleep. He says her name like a prayer he's allowed to say again. I don't speak because I know when silence is the only correct answer. That night, he wakes with a start at a thunderclap and doesn't explain, and I don't ask. I just roll and place my palm over the left side of his chest, the way I learned in the dark, and he settles back down like my hand weighs exactly what gravity should. In the morning, he tells me he dreamt of a stairwell and hands he couldn't see. He says he doesn't remember what they wanted, only that he refused to give it. He brushes a curl off my forehead and smiles like he knows that his refusal is why we're here. Sophia calls a week later, with a tremor I remember from alleyways and closed doors. "He's outside," she whispers. "Rico." My blood runs cold, and then hot, and then cold again, a tide that doesn't know how to pick a season. Where? Across the street. He's just standing, staring at my windows. I'm on my way. I'm grabbing my keys when Sandro looks up from the island where he was calmly reading a financial report like men don't haunt us in broad daylight. He's moving before I finish the sentence. Stay, he says gently, intercepting me without turning it into a blockade. Marco's closer. He'll get there before you. If you leave now, you'll arrive after it's resolved, and you'll have driven like a bullet the whole way. I can't sit here. You can stand here. He places his phone on speaker and calls Marco. The line picks up instantly. Sophia's building. Already here, Marco says. He's posturing. Police are en route. He doesn't see me. There's rustling. The grainy buzz of someone talking to someone else with their shoulders. I squeeze the counter like I could crush granite. And Sandro organizes something invisible. A map. A sequence. A quick prayer he offers to whatever God listens to men who make their own luck. Do not engage, Sandro says. Film everything. If he steps onto the property line, we file trespass. Make sure the restraining order is visible in frame. Copy. It unfolds with the banality of evil and the efficiency of paperwork. Rico makes a show of checking his watch. Marco makes a show of adjusting his jacket and captures every second. The police arrive slow, the way they always do when they know a name doesn't carry campaign donations. They ask why Rico's there. He says he wants to talk to the mother of his child. He says rights like a talisman. Marco slides his phone to the officer with footage of a signed restraining order and a line on a sidewalk that demarcates more than property. The officer sighs like he has a headache and tells Rico to leave or ride in the back of a car. Rico tries a last smile. It fails. He gets in the car. Sophia exhales on the phone like it hurts. Is it over? For today, I say, and the relief is a match head. It flares hot, then wicks into smoke. Keep the door locked. I'll be there after dinner service. No, Sandro says gently. And for a second it feels like betrayal until I turn and see the set of his face. The math he's doing with my time and danger. Marco will stay. Vance will file an addendum. You will come in the morning, with me, in daylight, with witnesses. Sophia hears it too. The weight of a man learning to protect without removing my autonomy, and she laughs wetly. Tell your boss I'm not a porcelain doll. Tell my sister she's not porcelain, I say. But she's very, very pregnant. We all laugh. Brittle, and then less so. The days fold into a rhythm that tastes like vigilance but chews like hope. Sandro goes through his business like a quiet storm, knocking out rotten beams and replacing them with steel. He cuts ties to men who only knew how to spend lives as if they were money that grew back. He builds a charity arm under a real estate shell, funds rehab programs with the kind of discretion that won't make newspaper photos, and slips envelopes to widows the way his nonna slipped them to him, in a napkin, with dignity. He doesn't get soft. He chooses where to be hard. We don't say love every day. We don't have to. It's in the way he leaves the light on when I work late. It's in the way I keep sugar packets in my purse because he pretends he doesn't like his coffee sweet and then steals from mine. It's in the way we both stand when Sophia enters a room, the only royalty either of us recognizes without reservation. The day the rival family sends 2 men to test a fence. They do it at my other job because predators always go for what they think is soft. They try again with eyes behind a newspaper and a car that circles twice. Sandro lets them have their performance, then sends the evidence he collected to the only person on Earth who can pull their reins without making them buck. Their mother. 2 hours later, a text pings on Marco's phone. Apologies. It won't happen again. A second text arrives on Sandro's. Next time, come to me first. He reads it, laughs once, and deletes it. Sometimes peace is a matriarchy with teeth. Rico calls from inside a jail he still thinks is a waiting room. He calls everyone whose number he has left, and then tries the restaurant, because abusers never learned what boundaries were for. Carla hangs up on him. He calls again. She answers, says he's not here, and hangs up again. She frames the restraining order copy in the office like a child's drawing. When I tell Sandro, he brings her cannoli and makes a joke about owing her Saturday nights for eternity. She says, I'll take Thursdays, because she knows what a life costs, and she will not accept underpayment. We don't get an epiphany. We get accumulation. Every time I come home and my key finds the lock without a moment where my body expects an ambush is a small miracle. Every page in the folder with Vance's stamp on it is a brick in a wall between Sophia and harm. Every Sunday at Nana's table, where I learn the argument rhythm and when to shut up and let women tell their stories over sauce, is a class in being a person who belongs. One afternoon, I find the courage to visit the place Sandro goes when his mouth goes tight and his ring turns. I go to the cemetery with a bunch of flowers that look like sunrise and set them on the clean stone where his mother's name reflects sky. "Hi," I say, because how else do you begin a conversation with someone you never met, and yet is the reason you love the way you do? "Your son is a good man. Stubborn, possessive, overprotective, but good." I smooth the ribbon around the stems. A nervous tick that has nothing to do with neatness. "Thank you for raising him right. Or, at least, for loving him in a way that gave him a map back to that when the world tried to make him a weapon only." Arms slide around my waist. He smells like the day, like coffee and subway air and the paper of files he's carried. He doesn't speak, just rests his mouth near my ear and breathes in, out, as if he could inhale the moment and keep it for when he needs to remember what softness feels like. "My mother would have loved you," he says eventually. Voice quiet enough for the dead not to wake. The woman who told me to go to hell and meant it. I lean back into him. "Best decision I ever made. Taking me there? Taking you everywhere." He laughs, the sound full and young, and presses a kiss to the spot just below my ear that makes my eyes close without my permission. Sophia's baby arrives on a rainy night that looks like a watercolor left out too long. Her labor is long and stubborn, and exactly like her. She holds my hand and swears she will never forgive me for telling her it feels like pressure when it feels like dying. She forgives me between contractions. She forgives me again when the baby cries and sounds, like a newborn lamb in something old and holy. They place the little person on her chest, and the world narrows to the shape of a face that looks like none of us and all of us. Dark hair, fists already bald like a fighter, a mouth that finds what it needs without anyone teaching it. "What's her name?" I ask, breathless in a way that has nothing to do with running. Sophia looks at me, eyes swollen with tears and joy. "Lucia," she says, "after you." I try to say something that isn't a sob. I fail. I look at Sandro and his eyes are wet, and he doesn't pretend otherwise. He leans over and kisses Sophia's forehead like a brother, like a man whose family grew the way families should. By choice, by love, by the steady work of showing up. The nurse asks about godparents. Sophia doesn't hesitate. "Him," she says, jerking her chin at Sandro. He opens his mouth to argue because he thinks he's built only for protection and not for ceremonies. She glares. He accepts. "Yes," he says, voice thick. "I'll teach her the right kinds of rules and how to break the wrong ones." We take them home to the apartment that smells like baby shampoo and curry from the neighbor, and something new that might be hope. Sandro lingers by the door like he doesn't trust himself to leave. He fusses with the stroller like a man who needs a task instead of the vastness of feeling he's not practiced at. I place my hand on his chest until his breath finds the right speed. "Come on," I say. "Nona's making enough food to feed the hospital, and your cousins are already fighting over who gets to babysit. We do Sunday dinners in a bigger circle now. The baby gets passed from lap to lap like a prized heirloom everyone knows is for using, not storing in a cabinet. Sandro holds her like something he's been waiting to be allowed to touch. She grips his ring with ferocious determination, and he laughs, unfettered, and says, "Take it, Piccolina. It's yours." He starts talking to men with titles he used to respect and doesn't anymore about legitimate ventures. He sells off small clubs to kids who think nights never end and reinvests in buildings with sturdy bones and roofs that won't leak on single mothers at 3 a.m. He tells men who want to bring him guns that he wants their contracts instead. Their routes, their lists of which suppliers cheat and which pay on time. He becomes an underboss who looks toward exit ramps, and it makes other men nervous. He doesn't do it for them. He does it because a woman told him the truth and stayed. One evening, months later, I go back to that restaurant where I told a man to go to hell and change my life like a coin toss. I order a glass of wine I can afford now without calculating tips in my head. I sit at table 6 and watch a new waitress wipe down the next table with the concentration of a surgeon. She's young. She's tired. She's so careful. Sandro slides into the chair across from me like he always belonged in that seat. He looks around and smiles. The scar in his brow catches the low light and makes him look like a story told over and over until it became a myth that's mostly true. "I like you here," he says. "I like me anywhere," I say, and I mean it. "You took me someplace I needed to go," he says. And even now, with everything decided and signed and safe, his voice holds the seriousness of vows, not hell. Somewhere that looked like it from the outside and felt like home when I finally arrived. Home is a person, I say, nonchalant in the way people get when they're trying not to cry in public. Home is you. He pays the bill because he always will, and I let him because I pick up childcare, costs and pastries, and the occasional repairman who can't believe a woman knows what a valve is. We walk out onto a street that watched us begin, and I tuck my hand into the crook of his elbow, like an old lady claiming her rights. There's a quiet stretch where the city lets us be. No rival cars, no cameras lingering, just the sound of tires and footsteps, and a dog in a window who thinks it could take down a truck if it had to. Sandro's hand finds mine, warm and sure, and he presses his mouth to my temple in a gesture that has become the punctuation at the end of our days. Forever sounds like a threat when the wrong man says it. I murmur, "It sounds like a promise when you do." Back at the penthouse, the lights are low and the plants throw soft shadows on the walls, like the outlines of trees we haven't yet walked under. There's a blanket on the couch because we actually use our couch for what couches are for. Arguments over documentaries, naps where feet end up in laps, the kind of kissing that tastes like laughter and wine. We stand in the doorway and don't move because moving would break the spell of simply arriving. He looks at me like he's still surprised I return. I look at him like I can't believe a man built of edges learned to make a place so comfortable my sharp parts don't scrape. "Come to bed," he says. But it's not a command. It's an invitation to a place we built, not a place he owned before me. We don't rush. We move the way we always do. Check, ask, answer. He touches me with the confidence of a man who learned my map and knows it changes with the weather. I hold him like a future and a memory. We laugh in the dark because joy is part of the work too. He is careful in the ways that matter. He asks, he listens, he pauses when my breath stutters. He protects with a practiced motion that is not perfunctory, but a kind of love we've folded into ritual. We come apart and back together without performance, and he tends the quiet after like a gardener, smoothing my hair back, water within reach, breath steady, pray soft. "Marry me," he says into the silence, and it should feel too soon or too much. But time has moved differently with him since the first night a room fell quiet and a man smiled like a dare. "Ask me tomorrow," I say, because certainty deserves at least a sunrise. He laughs, mouth against my shoulder. "Every day, then." "Every day," I echo. Morning comes with the sound of the city being itself, and the smell of coffee, and the memory of the night like a warm hand I can slip into my pocket whenever I need. He doesn't push for an answer. He cooks eggs like it's a second language. I stare at him over the island and think about vows spoken in kitchens instead of churches, about papers that mean something because we'll make them mean something, about names and how they change and what stays mine. By afternoon, we're at Nana's again because it's Sunday and that's what we do. She puts the baby, my namesake, his goddaughter, into his arms and says, "You were always meant to hold something precious." He looks at me over the baby's soft head and I nod. The kind of yes that moves furniture inside of you and makes space for more. Later, at the cemetery, I place new flowers. Not because the old ones were wilted, but because love looks like repetition too. He asked, I tell the stone. I said yes in my bones. I'll tell him with my mouth tomorrow. Sandro wraps me up from behind, chin on my shoulder, arms the perimeter where nothing bad gets through. "Tomorrow," he murmurs, a smile in it. "Tomorrow. I promise." He holds me there until the air gets cool, until the light turns that particular gold that makes even the city's edges look soft. We walk back to the car with our fingers laced, not because we need to prove anything, but because this is how we go now. Together, with vigilance and laughter, and a house built where hell should have been. And when tomorrow comes, and the next day, and the next, he asks in the kitchen with coffee and the baby hiccuping in her mother's arms, and I say yes with my whole mouth, and Nonna cries like it's the best gossip she's ever heard, and Carla pretends she knew before we did, and demands a reception with cannoli as tall as me. We don't run from what we were. We just choose what we are. He is still dangerous to men who would harm what's his. I am still the girl who will walk between a scream and its target. Together, we are something that makes the city blink and recalibrate. We leave the front door unlocked when we're home, Because family comes and goes now. Because safety isn't an absence of threat, but a presence of people who will answer it with you. We keep the chain on at night because care is not the opposite of trust. It's the shape it takes. Sometimes he catches me looking at him like I'm still surprised he exists. Sometimes I catch him looking at me like he can't believe his hands learned to hold without taking. We say it when it matters, and we show it when words would only decorate. And at the end of every day, when he comes up behind me on the balcony and fits his body around mine like a question that has finally found its answer, he kisses the place below my ear, the spot that means home now, and he whispers a promise that doesn't ask for proof, only presence. Everywhere, he says. Everywhere, I answer. And we stay there until the city's lights flicker like stars decided to live at street level so we wouldn't have to crane our necks to see them.